Welcome to book blog number 3, and today we shall be talking about The Shining by Stephen King. And as usual, I'm going to start by reading a short but sweet passage. Here we go. Jack had read someplace that 7% of all automobile fatalities go unexplained. No mechanical failure, no excessive speed, no booze, no bad weather. Simply one car crashes on deserted sections of road, one dead occupant, the driver unable to explain what had happened to him. The article had included an interview with a state trooper who theorised that many of these so-called foo crashes resulted from insects in the car. Wasps, a bee, possibly even a spider or moth. The driver gets panicky, tries to swat it or unroll a window to let it out. Possibly the insect stings him. Maybe the driver just loses control. Either way, it's bang all over, and the insect, usually completely unharmed, would buzz merrily out of the smoking wreck looking for greener pastures. Lovely, albeit rather dark stuff. So let's talk about The Shining. Our main character is Jack Torrance. Jack Torrance is an aspiring writer, he's a recovering alcoholic, and he's also a former school teacher. And I should point out that he's a former school teacher because he's lost his job for roughing up a pupil at his last school. He's broke as a joke, he's down on his luck, his car's knackered, he appears to be without hope, but hope does arrive in the form of a living caretaker's job at a hotel that will soon be closed for the winter in a former ski resort in Denver. Jack finds out that he can live in, whilst he does this job, with his wife Wendy and his 5-year-old son Danny, and of course he can do his caretaking job during the day and write of an evening. They travel to the hotel, and on arrival they meet the head chef called Halloran, who is about to fly home for the winter, and Jack's son Danny very quickly strikes up a friendship with Halloran, and we learn that the two of them share a certain psychic ability that allows them to participate in non-verbal communication. They also have clairvoyant abilities, they can read people's minds, and they are frequently visited by disturbing premonitions. At first, all seems to be going well in this otherwise empty hotel. Jack, who is an aspiring playwright, finds that the seclusion helps him to focus on his work, and of course he gets to spend some quality time with his family in this idyllic setting. Soon, things start to get strange. Danny becomes disturbed by the increasingly bloody imagery in his mind's eye, and Jack is forced to question his own sanity, especially when topiary lions in the hotel grounds seem to shapeshift every time he turns his back on them. He starts to miss his drink, and an incident involving a wasp nest reminds him of his abusive father. A turning point comes when Jack promises his wife Wendy that they can leave the hotel, but for reasons that are unknown to him, Jack purposefully wrecks the ignition in the hotel snowmobile, which of course means they are stuck there for the winter. Soon the hotel comes alive every night with a seemingly unending masquerade ball, and Jack, who has become particularly resentful towards his son Danny, falls off the wagon and is served booze by a ghost barman called Lloyd. Jack and Wendy have a big bust-up, and Jack, having finally succumbed to the ancient evil that lives in the hotel, attempts to kill Wendy, but she survives with the help of Danny. Wendy incapacitates Jack, and she locks him away in a walk-in pantry, but he is set free by a malevolent spirit that lives in the hotel, and he goes on the warpath, and once more Wendy has to fight for her own survival. For some time, Danny has been sending telepathic pleas for help to his friend Halloran, who lives in Florida, 2,000 miles away. And Halloran, feeling he can't ignore this anymore, he flies out from Florida to Denver, and then he risks his own life driving in a snowstorm when he tries to reach the hotel in a rental car. Jack has been neglecting his caretaking duties, and as a result of this, the boiler explodes, flattening the building, and Jack is killed in the explosion. Halloran arrives just in time to take Danny and Wendy to a place of safety, and we later learn that he becomes something of a surrogate dad to Danny, realising that the boy no longer has a male role model. Where do I start? I'll start by saying that this is a terrifying tale, and that if you are easily spooked, or if you are of a nervous disposition, then you may wish to leave well alone. You may be best off just doing that. Jack Torrance, I must say, Torrance is a great name for somebody with anger issues, is something of a tragic figure, or he's just simply pathetic. He's failed in every area of his life, and he accepts no responsibility whatsoever. He's violent, but the only people he seems able to beat up are kids, including we soon learn, his own son. If Shining was written nowadays, then I have no doubt that it would be held up as a study of toxic masculinity. Jack Torrance despises authority, he's wretchedly insecure, and in the opening chapter we are given a great example of this. He attends an interview for the caretaker's job, but rather than listen to the interviewer, he just passes the time by internally and repeatedly remarking that the hotel's manager is, and I quote, an officious little prick. That to me kind of says it all. Then there's his wife, Wendy. Wendy is meek and mild throughout. She doesn't get to say, do or think very much, or at least not until the end, where she shows she has a resourceful side and she bravely defends herself against Jack's attempts to kill her. Hands up, I did feel myself feeling tempted to judge Wendy at times for being such a poor judge of character, for becoming and remaining involved with such a volatile character, but she too is a tragic figure. She's nowhere to go, no one to turn to. She doesn't feel that she could provide financially for her and Danny alone, so I came to feel very sorry for her, but I do feel that I was being encouraged, or dared even, to judge her for being such a poor judge of character. Let's not forget that horror writers are skillful at appealing to our darker instincts. Let's talk about Danny. Stephen King has great fun with Danny, especially Danny's attempts to understand grown-up conversations, his attempts to make sense of adult turns of phrase. Like, for example, his dad allegedly has a wagon, but he lives in constant fear of falling off, and Danny wants to know where his dad keeps this wagon. Danny is amused that his dad's best friend has a set of marbles that he loses from time to time, and Danny is very interested to find out what and where the sanitarium is. Halloran, well, I guess we need a hero, and it is made very clear that Halloran is twice the man Jack Torrance is. Not only does Halloran save the day and end up giving fatherly advice to Danny, he also gets to risk his neck in a hair-raising car journey along a twisty, snowy mountain road that temporarily suspends the supernatural element in favour of a more earthly thrill. But however much Stephen King dislikes Jack Torrance, and no matter what personal demons he hoped to exercise here, there can be no denying or no doubting that Jack Torrance is the star of the show. He's irreverent, he's unpredictable, he's funny, he's smart-mouthed, and just as I felt I was being dared to judge Wendy for being a poor judge of character, I almost felt like I was being egged on to have a bit of time for Jack Torrance. I felt like I was being dared to like him and maybe throw him a lifeline. It didn't work, but I definitely felt like I was being encouraged to do that. Minor niggle time? Well, the only minor niggle I found with this is that I find it unlikely that someone will be allowed to take their child out of school for 6 months, especially not someone with a reputation like Jack Torrance has. But I've merely scraped the surface. There's loads more. If you want to find out more, you'll have to buy a copy, and I must say, I recommend that you do. It is a fantastic read. I'm going to end things now by reading to you. This is where Jack falls off the wagon, God help him. He picked it up with a badly trembling hand. It was raw gin. He looked into it, and looking was like drowning. Jack brought the drink to his mouth and downed it in 3 long gulps, the gin highballing down his throat like a moving van in a tunnel, exploding in his stomach, rebounding up to his brain in one leap where it seized hold of him with a final convulsing fit of the shakes. When that passed off, he felt fine. "Do it again, please," he said, and pushed the empty glass toward Lloyd. Dark, but undoubtedly a superb piece of writing. Okay, don't forget, this is a book club. There's a comment section below. I look forward to hearing from you, and I shall do my best to reply and answer any of your comments. Okay, guys, until next time, bye for now.